now that I've come out publicly with my deconstruction from religiosity, Christianity, fundamental evangelical Christianity specifically, the responses have been fascinating. People say things like, well, he never really was a Christian. He left Christianity so that he could sin. He must have been hurt or wounded in some way, and on, right? But the majority of them strike me as just curious because that couldn't be true of everyone. Um, I mean, just like look at that realistically. Not everyone that leaves any kind of a religion does it for the same reasons. And in my case, as you know, a former evangelical fundamental pastor, having pastored and traveled around and spoke from church to church, when I first started into ministry, even before I was in Bible college, I was traveling as an evangelist, going church to church, little bitty country churches and preaching in youth groups. And this is the season when I mentioned this in another video, but I was swallowing goldfish for Jesus. How terrible is that? How inhumane. Anyway, I was doing that and then went to Bible college. And of course, then after graduating Bible college, I still traveled and was teaching kind of as an evangelist, and then took a youth pastor position, and the rest is history, and then pastored my own church for nearly 20 years. And I loved it. I really did. This is the thing. Oh, by the way, my name's Timmy Gibson, former fundamental evangelical Pentecostal tongue talking pastor for 30 years. I'm 55, spent about 49 to 50 years of my life as a Christian, and I've walked away from all of that. I would consider myself agnostic. As it relates to the Bible God, I'm atheist. If you're asking about the Bible God, I definitely don't believe in that God. But honestly, for me, it was wonderful. I loved being a Christian. I loved teaching. I loved preaching. And in fact, that's why I still, talk like this. It's different now, but I really, really loved it. I definitely didn't leave the faith because of some kind of unhappiness, and clearly not for some kind of a sinful reason. That's just literally not my story. um I guess unless my sin was that I didn't believe in God anymore, whatever. But I couldn't stay. Like, for me, I guess if I wanted to put it in one sentence, I loved being a Christian until I realized that it wasn't true. And then it was I couldn't stay a Christian because that would be dishonest. I didn't believe it. And even though it was my life, my career, my financial situation, I mean, I was a full-time paid pastor of a fairly decent sized church, so I wasn't paid like a TV evangelist, but I was making my living as a pastor, and making a fine living. And to walk away from that definitely was not helpful financially at all. Uh, but I had to be true to myself. I mean, how could it'd be like if you were a flat earther, okay? And finally enough evidence was presented to you that you realized maybe the earth isn't flat after all. Like maybe the earth isn't flat. Well, how could you go on believing in a flat earth knowing good and well that it's not? Right? Like, and just imagine anything. I can't even just pick something. Imagine you were friends with somebody because you thought they were a good person, and then you find out they're not a good person. And right? I mean, what are you going to do? You're just still going to press on knowing all the, and for me, that's really honestly like that was my journey. It got to a point where I I couldn't I couldn't believe it because it wasn't true. Now, granted, my situation might be different than other Christians, being that I was a fundamental evangelical Christian. That meant that all the stories in the Bible were literally true. Like Jonah was actually swallowed by a big fish, lived in the belly of that fish for 3 days, right? Noah built an ark. The Exodus story was real. Like everything in the Bible was real. The sun stood still because of what, like all of those stories were absolutely miracles of God and historical facts. They were historical facts, right? So I say this a lot in my videos because I don't want to lump in all of the Christians into what I share on my YouTube channel. What I'm sharing on my YouTube channel is straight from my personal experience as a fundamental evangelical Bible believing Christian, where the Bible is inerrant, it's indestructible, incorruptible. The Bible says it, I believe it, that settles it. Like that group, tongue talkers, that if God said it, that's it, like that. Like that's what I come from. So for me to see and to learn that the earth isn't 6,000 years old, that we know through DNA, like 100% Adam and Eve weren't the first two humans, and evolution is a fact, and right, all of these things that started revealing themselves to me were just conflicting with my Christian worldview and my Christian faith, to the point where I had to say, like, do I believe this? I mean, can I go on believing this? And not to mention knowing that prayer doesn't work, knowing that a Christian's life is no different than anyone else's life. A Christian gets laid off work. A Christian gets sick. A Christian dies. A Christian loses things. A Christian gets addicted. A Christian goes to prison. Like it's there are no differences. And I just finally allowed myself to be honest and ask questions honestly. So when people, when they make comments, people are so silly in their comments, that they're just silly. They're just silly. But for me personally, I love being a Christian, and I love the truth more than that. I loved being a Christian, clearly, but I really enjoyed it. It's almost like, and I enjoy life in general. That's to be honest with you, I've always been I'm wired this way. I've kind of always been a happy person. So I was definitely pretty conflicted when I first started kind of coming to terms with, wait, oh, this isn't true. Like that what I'm believing isn't actually true. Oh man, it was distressing, honestly. And so, I mean, kudos to you that can keep on, making yourself believe things, or just burying your head in the sand is how I would look at it. Just burying your head into the sand and just being like la 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 la. Don't tell me, don't show me in the contradictions. I don't want to hear it. And in fact, I say that because I recently had a conversation with a Christian, and they were somewhat curious about my story, but I said, well, here's a couple videos that really will shed some light on some genuine, like this guy's talk about Bart Ehrman. I'm like, Bart Ehrman is a scholar. He's a history Bible. He still teaches at a Bible college. Like, this guy is super brilliant. He knows his stuff. Like, you should watch one of his videos. And I sent a video to kind of just not to deconvert them, but just to like, hey, like you should know, if you're gonna know the Bible, say you love God and you're a Christian and you know the Bible, like you should really, really know it. Like you should really know what you're saying, because I personally, I don't want to lie. Like, that's just the thing. I don't want to lie. So when I was a Christian and I'm learning things, I pretty soon it was like my tongue was so restricted, because I was like, well, I can't say that because that would be a lie. I can't say that that this, the Exodus story is true when we know it's not true. Our archaeology has determined that the Exodus did not happen like the Bible says that it did. And I'm not smart enough to go through all the things. You go to other YouTube channels that get into all of that. I'm just telling you my journey is that as I'm looking and reading and studying the experts, the theologians, the Bible scholars, the Jewish history experts, like the people that know, I'm learning that there's this common thread. Like, they're all saying the same things. And so anyway, to this person, I said, hey, why don't you, like, you got to watch this video. It's very curious. This guy knows what he's talking about. He's a Bible scholar, and this is interesting. They wouldn't watch it. And I asked them later, I said, what? I said, hey, did you watch the video? And I said, because send me a video. I'll watch any video. If you want to send me the video of Josh McDowell, The Case for Christ, or what, I'll watch it. Like, I'll watch it. I've read those books. I've seen those videos. I've watched the debates. Like, I'm the kind of agnostic that if someone says, hey, I saw a great debate and I think the Christian perspective is really good, if I send you the video, will you watch it? I'll watch it. I'll watch it. I'm open, and nothing works to change my mind or convince me, much like many who also, that you're not going to be convinced of anything other than what you already believe, and that's fine. But I would challenge you to say this, that if your faith is so strong, why wouldn't you have an open mind and read and study and investigate? Like, if your faith is so strong and if you're so certain, then right? Like, I'm still watching debates between Christians and atheists. Like, I'm still reading and listening to things that are from a Christian perspective to see what's up. I'm still open. Now, for me personally, it would just be impossible for me to return to Christianity based upon everything I know. I've said this before, that Jesus Christ himself at this point would have to appear to me in the presence of my wife, and preferably even a few more people, and prove to me that this is because there's so many things that just prove to me the other side of it. And again, I can't get into all of that. I will, over time, as I keep doing videos. Eventually I'll get it all out there. But I wanted just to throw that fallacy out there, that I loved Christianity. I really, really, really loved it. And I found the message of Jesus very compelling. It really was. Like, it touched my heart. And sometimes even now, it can touch my heart. I don't believe it to be true, but it's still beautiful in a way. Beautiful, but yeah, honestly, it's just like I love fiction. I love novels. I love all kinds of mystery books. And there are times I'm reading a book and I'll get teary-eyed. I know it's a fiction. It's not real, but it's just the concept or the idea of it. Like, the idea that the creator of the universe loves me, specifically me, and he has a plan or she has a plan for my life specifically, and that I was knit together in my mother's womb, and he handpicked me, and yeah, all these things like that like that sounds cool. That sounds awesome. All right, so just one last little closing thought here. I was thinking about this the other day, well, actually earlier today, and I was thinking about, have you ever met anyone who, because when people, especially Christians, specific Christians, not all Christians are like this, but there's certain ones. Just look at the comments below in my videos. You'll see those people. And they say just ignorant things. They just say ignorant things, that they left because they wanted to sin, or they left because there was something, whatever, that something was bad happening. That's why they left. And it reminds me of people that get fired or leave a job or get divorced. Have you ever met anyone that said after a divorce that, yeah, I got divorced, I was just a piece of poop, I was selfish and uncaring, and I wasn't there most of the time, and I was absent, and I would never have sex with my partner, and I was just a terrible partner? No, you never hear that. What do they say? My ex is a narcissist, and they were just, it's all the other person. It's never them. They're innocent. Or have you ever met anybody that, like I said, got fired or got laid off? Or what do they say? Do they ever say, yeah, you know what? I got fired, man. I was showing up late. I wasn't doing a good job. I was talking back to I couldn't get along with any of my peers, and I was never meeting my sales goals. And they don't say that. They say my boss was an a-hole, and they treated me terrible. They were underpaying me and overworking me. It's always, people can't be honest with themselves, right? And so I think that's kind of what's going on when a Christian witnesses another Christian leaving. It has to be for a bad reason. It can't be for a good reason, right? They can't say, yeah, Timmy left Christianity because he saw that it wasn't true, and he wanted to be honest with himself and with others. Right? Like, you can't, they're not going to say that, but that's the truth. From the horse's mouth to your ears. Like, that's the truth. Like, that's what really happened. But you can't, how do you reconcile that, right? Like, how as a Christian do you reconcile someone leaving something that you hold dear, that's your very identity, right? Most Christians, they're not just this, that's not just what they believe, that's who they are. It is their identity. So clearly they can't allow it in their brain that someone left Christianity for a better life and for a good reason, and to be more true and honest with themselves and with others. Like they can't acknowledge that. And I get it. I'm not a psychology. That wasn't where my degree. I had my degrees in biblical studies, theology. So I don't have a degree in psychology. My wife does, and so I get a lot of insights from her. But it makes sense. It makes sense that's what Christians will do in their brain to justify why they are staying. In other words, people that leave Christianity are doing it because they want to sin, because of something silly. Like, there's a reason why they're leaving, and it has to do with some kind of something bad. They're bad, that's why they left. I'm good, and that's why I'm staying. All right. I can hear my dog over here making some noise. You want to meet my dog real quick? Do you want me to get my dog before I sign off here? Let me grab her real quick. All right, y'all. You get to meet my dog. Can you say hello? Say hello. This is Elle, everybody. All right, guys. Thanks for joining me. Peace.